let's talk about Zoran's recent rent freeze. And let's talk about how landlords are reacting to it. They're kind of upset, which boo-hoo, I suppose. But let's watch these stories together and see how we feel about it. And then we'll talk about the ethics about investing, laboring as a leftist, and being an anti-capitalist. Okay, here we go.
I wanted to come and bring everybody a happy rent freeze cake. I know it's not yet 9 o'clock. It might be a little early for cake.
We don't care. Happy rent freeze.
Happy rent freeze.
Really, you don't know what that means.
Yes, that's right. So
especially when you're on a fixed ticket. So you know I was getting out of bed to see you this morning.
Anyone who would like a slice? I am so glad to celebrate this morning with all of you, because at the heart of this are tenants. And you all have helped to build this city. You've given stability to this city. It's time the city brings some stability to you. And we're so excited that the Rent Guidelines Board decided to freeze the rent not just for 1 year, but for the first time in New York City history for 2 years.
What people are calling impossible, but you are showing that in the word impossible is impossible. That's right. That's what this is about.
I've lived here since 2017. It just keeps on getting more expensive, and our landlords are not coming through. So we need pressure. And we look at each other every day, we say, come on, Mamdani, help us out. And so he's here. It was amazing to see him in the building with us.
I cannot tell you what this means to senior citizens. We're on a fixed income. The prices of everything has gone up. I was really very nervous because I was just signing a new lease and I couldn't believe that this is like a dream come true. And for him to come to the building where the people are, the real people who need the help in New York City, you don't know how meaningful this is.
So obviously a little bit of an ad, this is from NYC's mayor's office. So this is like a little ad for Zoran. But, there's something to be said about this. So obviously I'm happy. You're happy. I think we're happy for people. I think this lady right here sums it up perfectly. Okay.
I woke up and learned that my rent will not increase for the next 2 years. And I will tell you with 100% certainty that no amount of therapy, no amount of journaling, no amount of manifestation, no amount of breath work could have regulated my system like learning that at least my rent will be frozen for the next 2 years. And this is your reminder that your politicians, your government, owe you a regulated nervous system. Let me give you a radical idea. Stop healing. The entire self-help industry in the United States, for the most part, not all, it is a distraction to take away from the fact that our governments, all of these systems are dysregulating us, and instead we're here internalizing it. And I will tell you that the simple fact of knowing that my rent is frozen for the next 2 years has done more for my nervous system than the last 4 years of trying everything to feel better. I woke up and learned that
now, here's what I want to do with this. This is important, okay? So I agree with her. And because this is a philosophy channel and we do philosophy through pop culture, one of the dilemmas to this argumentation as the end all be all is it doesn't account for the fact that at the end of the day, we can't wait for systems to heal ourselves. Because if we wait for systems, we'll never heal ourselves. Like when we talk about breaking generational curses, when we talk about family trauma, when we talk about partners abusing us, or we talk about family members being abusive or bigoted, like we can't wait for the rest of the world to catch up. We're having kids now. We have family members now. Our parents are dying now. We need relief now. So philosophy comes in to make meaning and reason out of the chaos. It allows us to use grounded logic to have a grounded relationship with how hard life is. And if you recognize, at least I believe, that we're animals on a planet evolved over millions of years, it puts into perspective that when we talk about labor and surviving, not only are we doing pretty good, but it's also like could be so much better. It's weird living in a world where you have to live in contradictory. You have to recognize how privileged we are. And you have to say like, wait, this is all we were able to do. We could go to the moon, but we couldn't give people fair rent. And then that allows you to say, okay, I have the humility to see how privileged I am. And also I have the audacity to know we could do more, because we could do so much more than we're doing. It's insane. So then how do we do more than we're doing? If you know, you would think that if we could do it, we already would. That's kind of true, but kind of not. So what I want us to do is recognize that, yes, what she is feeling here is real. I would say that it's not exactly that the government froze her rent. It's that she can predict and plan for the next 2 years. Just like if you're in a toxic relationship with a person, you don't know if they love you today or hate you today. You can't live like that. So the government coming in and regulating your partner isn't what you need. What you need is the consistency of the reliability. My partner and I just had one of our family meetings. We have a few of those a month to like set the pace for our planning. We just did one of our family meetings for a 3-year plan. And we sat on the couch, we grabbed my notebook, and we went through all the numbers, we went through all the things, and we made a plan for 3 years. 3 years. So for the next 3 years, I got to think about nothing. I have it. We already talked about it. If we need to update, we can do that at our next family meeting. But otherwise, for the next 3 years, we have a plan. And this relieved so much of the burden I was carrying mentally. So much of my mental load disappeared. And I was like, perfect. So in this one area of our life, all of that stress I was having, poof, which is what she's explaining here, which is what I want you to do now. I want you to, in many ways, look at your life and see what you can plan out to relieve some of that stress. Because if you're juggling it every day, you're not going to get there. Now, one of the other things I will absolutely agree with her on is I'm a renter as well. And one of the things I talked to my partner about is because we're renting in Croatia because he's a Croatian. I said, what are the chances our landlord raises our rent like $500? And he looked at me like this. He's like, no, he can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, we have rules. And I was like, rules? I lived in a place in America where within 3 years of renting, they raised my rent $1,000 a month. And he was like, in order for that to happen in Europe or Croatia, like, he's like, I can't even tell you how impossible that is. That relieved so much of my stress. I couldn't even tell you. I was like, oh, he's like, it's impossible. He's like, maybe $10 or 50 euro or something. He's like, but Brittany, they can't do that. And I was like, oh. And then even more than that, not only is our landlord cool, but we've talked to him and he really likes us as renters. And we do plan to rent long term. Like in my ideal situation, we're going to rent for another 5 years to 10. I'm dead serious. I will stay at this place for another 10 years. I would do that. And so for us, like, we're kind of hoping to have that relationship with our landlord. And, you know, because it's not an apartment building, right? It's a private property because Croatia, from my understanding, they don't have like apartment buildings like America does in the way that you imagine it. I've rented a lot of leases in apartment buildings. That's not what's going to happen here. So yeah, like ideally I'd be here for a really long time. But even then, the most our rent could raise would be capped. And that just like, oh, that's such a relief, you know, in so many ways to know that we have a place to live, because I don't know what we would do. Like, I genuinely don't know where we would go because a majority of people own in Croatia. There's not a lot of renting is not the norm, you know? So it's like, where would we? So all of this to say, I hear her, I see her, I agree with her. The amount of relief you have over planning is amazing. That's why I try to plan as much as my life as possible and then make amendments to those plans as life happens, because you have to adapt, right? Okay, let me go to chat really fast because I feel like I'm missing some good comments from you guys. You said the way Europeans are so shocked to find out how Americans live. I know. I'm going to have a video I'm going to show you after this whole conversation as well about a couple who lived 10 years out of the US, and they've been talking about just the differences. And so we're going to talk about that as well after this. Just as I live with family and our family household rent got raised $2,200? $2,200? You mean they raised? No, they raised it to $2,200. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's still a lot, but I thought you meant they raised it $2,200. My bad. My reading comprehension. Hold on. Our family household rent got raised to $2,200. That is a lot. To be honest, it's what my siblings are paying for one bedroom, one bath apartments in California. That's what my single siblings are paying for one bedroom, one baths in California. Not to compare, but like, isn't that crazy? I'm just like, I've never paid $2,200 for an apartment. Damn, brother. Isn't that crazy? I know. It's insane out here. It's insane out here. You know, Chad said, at least we have a house, not an apartment. Hey, at least that. Damn, bro. Chad said in Serbia, when you have a good relationship with your landlord, they usually lower your rent. Shout out to Serbia. Let's go. Chad says, I don't rent, but insurance and property tax, like, do a surprise jump with no warning. See, that's crazy. That's another part that's really scary is as homeowners. That's why I'm not running like to own a home tomorrow. You know, I'm trying to do my best to think about it because like I can just imagine how many hidden costs or just the commitment you're making, you know what I mean, to a house. Okay, now let's do this. Let me show you this video now. Okay, so this says landlords say rent stabilization laws force him to leave apartments vacant. So now here's landlords complaining about the changes.
I feel like I'm standing in a time capsule from the 70s. This is a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx that rents for $811 a month. That's if the landlord were to actually put it up for rent. This is a rent-stabilized apartment, but look around. The landlord says there is so much work that has to be done here to bring it up to code that it doesn't make financial sense to rent it out.
The owner is deciding to lose less money by just keeping it vacant.
Chipped and peeling lead paint, an outdated bathroom, and that red carpet, far from luxurious.
Not exactly the red carpet people want to walk into.
Kenny Burgos is the CEO of the New York Apartment Association and advocates on behalf of landlords who own rent-stabilized...
Advocates on behalf of landlords is the most disgusting sentence I've ever heard.
Apartments like this one in Mount Eden. It's been vacant since the last tenant moved out around 2021.
Why is this apartment still vacant so many years later?
He's got the Andrew Tate stance, you know?
Because the law today says that when the tenant moves out, you still, of course, before law and after, you would have to upgrade and renovate this unit and bring it up to the current housing standard of 2026. The difference is now the law says we don't really care what you spend. You cannot change the rent from the previous tenants.
A 2019 change to the state's rent laws got rid of the 20% vacancy bonus, where...
Oh my God, bro. This guy, I've seen a couple of interviews with him already, and I'm just like, he screams sleazy. He's got that landlord look, let me tell you. Thank you so much, Rise Again, for the super chat. I always feel silly saying this out loud. How do you say it? Assalamu alaikum. I am so bad at saying it. From the Islamic Republic of NYC. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the super chat and the greeting. Why can't I say it good? I need a Muslim to teach me how to say it good.
Landlords could hike rents for new tenants.
It's really a crisis.
Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal.
Salam alaikum. Salam alaikum. It's assalamu alaikum. I'm going to get there, girls. I'm going to get it.
Chair of the Housing Committee voted for that bill.
We found that with the 20% vacancy bonus, it was an incentive for landlords to harass tenants out. Finally, we righted the scales.
Wait. What is this?
It's really a crisis.
Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal, chair of the Housing Committee, voted for that bill.
We found that with the 20% vacancy bonus, it was an incentive for landlords to harass tenants out. Finally, we righted the scales. Landlords didn't like that, and what they said immediately after we passed it was, we're going to keep apartments off the market.
What do you say to that?
I say, what do they then say to landlords who have already gone bankrupt, who've already been in foreclosure?
Something definitely wrong here.
The tug of war between landlords and tenants advocates leaves lifelong New Yorkers like Troy Williams caught in limbo.
I live in a tier 2 shelter right now, and that's why I have a voucher now, you know? And I'm really trying to, you know, get back to where I was this time 2 years ago.
So just how many rent-stabilized apartments are sitting empty with low rents that need extensive repairs? Well, we actually just got an answer from the city's Department of Housing Preservation and Development. A survey found just under 2,500 units that have been vacant for a year or more, needing extensive repairs with rents below $1,000. Of course, these are units sitting empty when
2,500 units?
So massive repairs with rent under 2,500 units that have been vacant for a year or more, needing extensive repairs with rents below $1,000. Of course, these are units sitting empty when so many are desperate for an...
This is what I'm saying. We're in a housing crisis. We do not have time for this. Please lock in. This is what I'm saying. Now, okay, I'm going to show you one more video, and then I'm going to, again, it's about landlords complaining, sorry. And then I'm going to read you a comment that I got about Chelsea Fagan, landlords, owning 2 homes, da-da-da-da.
Mayor Mamdani, the Rent Guidelines Board approves a rent freeze for nearly 1 million rent-stabilized units. But landlords call the process a farce, telling Christina Fan renters will ultimately pay the price.
This is just cosplaying fairness. This isn't real fairness.
Jan Lee, whose family has owned this Chinatown building for nearly a century, is crying foul, accusing the Rent Guidelines Board of freezing rent, despite mounds of data he says shows rising costs for landlords.
They're not even hiding the bias anymore. The mayor had campaigned on a rent freeze. He appoints 75% of the board, and now he's got his hand on the scale.
Just hours before Thursday.
I'm so sorry, with peace and love, Habibi. Listen to him. Wait, that is so funny. He was just like, oh, Zoran sucks, man. He's trying to help people out. Like, bro, yeah, bro. Like, that's great. What a landlords are such complainers, bro. That is crazy.
Today's meeting, drama unfolded when Christina Smith, a member of the board who represented landlords, resigned from her post, accusing the process of being broken and unjust. But it did little to sway the results, as the Rent Guidelines Board voted 7-1 in an historic first to approve a 0% increase on both 1- and 2-year leases. Renters say the measure was necessary as they struggle to combat inflation and cuts to social services.
It's going to do so much to really affect my life in a good way.
I feel very good because in New York, that's one of the biggest problems that we have. You know, rent is high and we really needed it stabilized.
I don't think people understand. Like, girlies, if you're paying, you know, $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. Okay, you're making $46,000 a year. Like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't, and then like, people don't understand. Like, we think about our monthly bills, but if you look at it at a year's time, you're just like, oh my God. Like, some people, $60,000 of their income goes to rent every year. 40,000, 30,000. Like, it's not a joke how much people are paying in rent. And so it's not like these landlords, you know, it's not like these landlords. The problem is, like, when you turn living into a business, which I'll talk about in a second, but the issues, that's where the ethics come in. Like, you're talking about people facing being unhoused because you want to make more money to go on a third vacation. Do you know what I'm saying? That's basically the issue with a lot of these landlords.
Mayor Mamdani,
oh, hold on,
who campaigned on freezing the rent, insisted the board's decision would be fair and impartial. He responded to the outcome, saying in part, "This is the relief that working people across our city deserve." But Lee says it's renters who the freeze will ultimately hurt.
If we keep eroding one side of the equation, something's got to give, and the people in those buildings are going to suffer. So there has to be some kind of fairness and recognition of the math.
The freeze will impact more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants throughout the city and will affect leases that begin after October 1st of
Okay, let me show you this, because I think this is the point. Okay. So I got this comment on my Chelsea Fagan video. So Chelsea Fagan isn't a landlord. She owns a company. She employs a lot of people. She bought a second house in France for $1 million. Again, it's not that I'm attacking Chelsea. I know a lot of her fans felt that way. I just have a different ethical framework, and I'm sharing my ethical stance on it. And I'm saying, unless you're putting a family in that house and not as a landlord, it's, in my book, unethical. In Brittany's world, unethical. Again, I'm sharing my ethics. You don't have to agree. My morals, you don't have to agree. But if you feel attacked, if you think I'm attacking Chelsea, if you think I'm jealous, which people accuse me of, or, oh, gatekeeping or purity politics, all these things I was accused of, it's like, you really got to figure that out for yourself, because genuinely, I'm coming from my perspective. This is my opinion. Now, somebody wrote a good faith comment to me, and I want to read it to you because it plays into this landlord conversation that I think is interesting. They said, I didn't watch her original video because I don't see a white woman talk about her. I don't want to see a white woman talk about her second home in France. That's Chelsea Fagan. I appreciate that you are emphasizing the values difference between you and Chelsea. I see this video as less of an outright critique and more of a, oh, I was unfamiliar with your game. I'm a financial diet viewer because I like finance content from women in general, and she introduces more cultural ideas into her videos and how they relate to money. I take what's for me and leave what it isn't. which I do too, by the way. I do watch Financial Diet. I think people started to think that I don't watch the videos. I watch like every single video, basically. Sometimes I don't watch the ones if Chelsea's not in them because I like Chelsea more than I do everyone else. But I do watch Financial Diet. So I think people just like, they hear me criticize and go, you must not watch the videos. I watch the videos. We're just taking different things away from them, right? Okay. So then it said, okay, which I agree with. You take what's for you and leave the rest. I hope you do the same with my own videos, right? I understand that means I might miss some key value differences between me and the creator of you, but that's life. What this video is really revealing to me is apparently I'm not a leftist. Does that mean I don't have something tangible to offer the movement? I don't know. But I don't aspire to own a second home, but I own one home and I rent it out. I am building savings to hopefully retire early from corporate America. I want to volunteer with my time when I'm no longer working. So first of all, here's the thing. Being a liberal and being a leftist are different things. They're different movements. They're two separate movements. So sometimes when people say, if I'm not a leftist, do I not offer anything to the movement? Well, you might not offer anything to the leftist movement, but you might offer something to the liberal left movement. I think people just generally don't know what these words mean. So when they hear me speak, they think like, well, can I offer something? Well, we're not even in the same club. You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing the same thing, which was also my criticism of Chelsea. Like, I thought Chelsea and I were doing similar things. I didn't realize for some reason. I was like, oh, are you not a anti-capitalist? I don't know why I thought she was. So then I was like, oh, you're doing something different. My bad. Okay. Have fun, girly. But also, so I think there's a confusion there with words. That's okay. They said, whoopsies. Hello. Hold on. I boomered. Hold on. I boomered. Hold on. It's loading. It's loading. It's absolutely having hold on. I boomered. I pressed the button. And now it's like, I must disappear from your viewpoint. And now you cannot view me. Okay. It says, okay. So she said she wants to, not buy a second home, but she owns a home and she rents it out. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure if she's saying I rent and then I rent out my home, or if she's saying I live in my home, but I rent out a part of my home. She said, I'm building a savings to hopefully retire from corporate America. Okay, great. I want to volunteer my time when I'm no longer working. Also great. Last year, the lack of SNAP benefits in the fall increased. So incensed me so much that I organized a volunteer action with friends to give dinner to folks in need. Love that. I could absolutely be doing more, but I guess I'm more of a Dem sock. I mean, maybe, I don't know. To be honest, because of the structure of the world, I don't feel any security in being a leftist and living in those ideals. Well, let's talk about that today, okay, girls? We're talking about that today. I would rather be mildly resourced than use the safety after launching pad to give back. Okay, 100%. But I don't think being a leftist means that you can't figure out ways to engage in the world. But that's the question we're going to pose to each other today, okay? Right? For now, those are my values. Until I see a reason not to, I'll keep watching, but like, I'm accepting that I'm somewhat of a capitalist in terms of wanting to generate enough sources to navigate this unjust world without burning out. Again, that's not necessarily what being a capitalist means when I say it, but we'll talk about it. And I guess I'll take mini hits when I watch this content since we do not value the same things. Again, I don't know why it has to be a hit. You know what I'm saying? Like when I watch content and people are talking, I don't absorb it as like she's taking a hit against me. Like it has nothing to do with me. They're sharing their opinion and I'm listening. And if I feel challenged by the idea, nobody's taking a hit at you. You know what I mean? Like I think conservative media is that. Conservative media is trying to shame you into feeling like you are bad. I'm just trying to listen and say, oh, do I care about this? And so I want us to all reframe any of the videos that we make, any of the content that I make is like, I'm not trying to take a hit at you, girlies. I'm trying to share my opinion. And then we can have a conversation about it. I wrote back and said, hey, girlie, just want to be clear. We all need to survive under capitalism and we all need to decide how to do it ethically to the best of our ability. I'm not sure if you're an ethical landlord, but I hope so. Shelter should be a human right and we can only continue to fight for that to be the case. The issue is that landlords who don't want that to happen because they don't want to lose their living. Does that make sense? So basically I said, the issue is the landlords who don't want to give that up. So the landlords I just showed you, I feel like are the examples of people who they could have chosen a different line of work, which Chap pointed out. They could have chosen a different job, but instead they chose to make a living off your room and board. They chose to go after one of the most vulnerable things about being a person, which was shelter, and they decided to make that their vacation money, that they're paying their bills that way. And yes, in some liberal conservative bubble, that used to be the dream. But in a leftist world where we know we're in a housing crisis and we know that housing should be a human right, the question is, would you as a landlord be willing to give up that right in order to make sure everyone has housing? Now, these people who own apartment buildings, they'd say no, because that's how they make money. And I'm saying, yes, but in a world where you didn't have to pay for rent, you wouldn't have to be a landlord to charge people for rent because you wouldn't have to pay for rent. The issue is that people are always like, but I have expenses too. Yes, but imagine a world where the government helped with those expenses. Imagine a world where the billionaires paid their fair share. Imagine a world where we did something about that. So I think the dilemma is like we're 8 billion people trying to make it work together. Imagine your family dynamics and you've got your whole family here for a gathering and you all have to decide where to go to eat. That's going to take a lot of debate and discussion. And then finally you come to a realization, or maybe you default to the patriarch or the matriarch in the family. So when we have these conversations, right, it's recognizing on one point that we're all animals on a planet, and this is a pretty good world for what we've created as an animal species. Like for animals, we're doing pretty good. Like, holy shit, move over, beavers. Okay, we're doing pretty good. And then on the other side of it, we're like, damn, if we have this ability, thanks to evolution, to have a deeper relationship with our experiences and to introspect, we should be doing more. And so it's holding those two things together at the same time. You know what I mean? Okay, let me read some comments because I feel like I'm definitely missing some good stuff here. Chad said, I'm a little confused about that comment. Do they rent out a space in their home or they also live in? That's when I was younger, I rented from a woman who would rent out the bedrooms in her home. So she had a 5-bedroom home and she rented out to each of us. It was an okay situation. I think in many ways I could have been a better tenant as well. Like I was definitely like, she had a lot of rules in the house, like no sleepovers, no bringing people over. And I was just like, I was feeling like so stuck in that house. I was paying $500 a month for the room. And I was like, I don't understand. I thought the whole point of me moving out and renting a room was so I could bring people over. But she's like, yeah, but it's my house and you're bringing people into my house. And I was like, I understand that. And also as a young person, I don't understand it, but also I do get it. And it was really hard for me because I was like, yes, I'm free. I'm on my own. Oh, I'm still renting a room. But so like, it's like this idea of what we're seeking is choice and freedom, which is why in many ways, I think a lot of people seek freedom in different avenues. So for some people that's wealth, for people that's like owning a business, for some people that's being single, for some people it's living alone, for some people it's like living with family. That way you can spend your money on other things. Like we all have an idea of what freedom looks like. For me, it's like a peace, a sense of peace when I go home. It's like a sense of peace, like that I have a choice about how I wake up in the morning and how I walk around my house and how loud my music is and who's over and all of these other things. And so when I think about it now, all these years later, it's something I keep in mind as I move towards quote adulting, right? Okay. And engaging in thinking about my future plans, right? Okay, let's see. Chet says, I think people identify really strongly with their choices. I've been thinking more about how Britt talks about embodying your values because then you wouldn't feel as attacked by different perspectives. Yeah, I think that is exactly a big part of it. Because I do think it's why men won't go vegan because they identify as meat eaters and it's a part of their masculinity. It's how they identify their gender. And if I don't eat meat, then like, how am I a man? And so when you say you're vegan, it's like, you're anti my identity. Like that's why meat companies literally make it all about men's identity because they sell you that your gender is now tied to your diet. And if you don't eat bacon, like, are you even a man? Which is why that girlie at the library or wherever she was being interviewed said that men who scoff at soy and act like eating soy is like wrong are anti-feminist basically because the meat industry heavily ties their marketing into gender politics for masculinity. Okay, Chad continued to say, I get it though, that it's hard though, not gonna lie. I felt personally attacked at times, but that's because I don't embody and look at others to validate me. I've learned through this community though. Yeah, like, okay, community. Let me tell you this, okay? Today is gonna be one of those days where I'll share some thoughts about investing, thinking about long-term stock market, stuff like that. Again, this from an ethics perspective. And then we'll talk about, ethical, existing ethically in capitalism, in the world in general, by the way. Because I think here's the thing. You know how the systems suck and are corrupt? You know your parents are too. You know your family is too, right? I think the problem is like a lot of people think it's just the system, but they forget to look at who birthed them, who they married, who they're friends with, who they work with. Like, it's not just the system. We suck as a whole world. We all suck. And if we all suck, then the best we can do is do less bad. Now, I know some people get upset when I say that because they don't understand what it means. Because again, they don't want people to be less bad. They want people to be punished for being bad. Well, I don't believe in punishment, right? Okay, Chet says, honest, Brittany, question. If these people were not able to be landlords, what would these people even do for a living? I don't know. Anything else? What do you mean? Anything else? I don't even understand the question. Are you saying that they have nothing else going on, so they couldn't do anything else? I don't know. With that said, look at this TikTok. This is one of the investy girlies on TikTok, your money mate Sarah. You might have seen her.
I'm really sick and tired of a lot of investing tips only focusing on how to maximize your returns and not focusing on what you're actually investing in. Because for a lot of people, they don't want their money funding some of the worst industries possible. But the good news is you don't have to. So, hello, I'm Sarah, your money mate, and on my page, I offer a little bit of a different perspective with personal finance because this is where intentional living meets financial stability. So if you like that sort of thing, give me a follow. Honestly, it kind of scares me how little people talk about impact investing and ethical investing because there's this kind of assumption that you have to sacrifice returns for values. Now, I'm not trying to say that ethical investing gives you higher returns than other types of investing. There are literally no guarantees when it comes to investing, and all types of investing carries risk. But how you get those returns and what kind of risk you experience is quite different. So I'm going to really quickly explain different kinds of ethical investing. One is ESG screened funds. So these still invest in global markets, but they will exclude certain industries like tobacco, weapons, or companies with poor labor or governance policies. And then another is thematic or impact funds. These are things like renewable energy, clean infrastructure, housing. These are much more focused and they do have higher volatility, but they have much clearer alignment with values. The reason why I invest ethically is not just a moral argument, but it's literally a practical one. We have finite resources on this planet, and most of the industries that people invest in are extractive, and fundamentally, the resources are going to run out. So whether the transition to things like renewable energy happens slowly or quickly, or probably more likely very messily, in my opinion, capital has got to move in that direction. So I actually think it's a practical argument to also include ethical investing in your portfolio because it's very possible that that is what the future is going to look like. Now, if you want a longer breakdown of ethical investing, I have just uploaded a longer video over on my YouTube, which is linked in my bio. I am really sick and tired.
Now, I don't know much about this. This isn't my bubble, but people are attempting to do something. And I think that's what I'm looking for because as I learn about investing, and look, to be honest with you, I'm not investing right now. I've never invested in my life. For like some people, they're like, oh my God, you're so old. You've never done it. But to be honest, like my partner and I are kind of like this about like what we need to do. So we're still 3 years away. That's what we sat down and talked about the other day for our family meeting. We're 3 years away from even having the money to invest. We don't have any extra money. Okay. It's not happening. We have other priorities we have to worry about in terms of finances. So absolutely not looking at investing. But most people would say start investing now, even if you don't have any money, which is kind of true, depending on how you want to do it. So if you think it's ethical to invest in the stock market or put money into your Roth or do any of those things, yeah, you should definitely start right now. If you don't think it's ethical and you're not sure about it, it's okay to wait. So we're not sure. We're on the fence. We're just not sure of what it means to invest. If we're anti-capitalist, what does that mean? Do we need to do this? It also is weird because my partner is in Croatia, and so it's a little bit different. And so we're trying to figure out like how much money do we need? What does retirement look like? Like obviously we're in the boat that most people are in, but I don't really want to be in that boat either. So then the question is, okay, how do we not be like everybody else who's going to be suffering in their 70s? Because God knows I do not want to be working when I'm 90. But also, how do I make sure that I don't engage in exploiting a system that's already corrupt? You know what I mean? So when we have these conversations, it's like, okay, what do I do? Yeah, chat says, I suggest at least investing in a high yield savings. Yeah, so we're at least doing that. Like the high yield savings account, that's the only thing that we're engaging in. Because that's where you keep like your emergency fund and everything. And that's fine. But when we talk about like in the market, it's a little harder and it's okay. But I am terrified for you. I am terrified for me. I am terrified for our 90-year-old selves. And I am concerned about where we're going to live. And I'm concerned about where we're going to die. And I'm concerned about hospital bills. And I think we should be concerned. And so the question is, and this is something that comes up with Hassan Piker, where one of my friends was like, well, I'm really nervous about not investing. But then I feel bad as like a leftist. And they were like, Hassan Piker doesn't invest in the market. I was like, Hassan Piker makes $2 million a year. He doesn't have to. Do you know what I'm saying? Of course, Hassan Piker doesn't have to invest. He makes $2 million a year on your donations, right? That's what he's making his $2 million a year on, your donations, which is crazy because you would have thought as leftists, we would have diverted some of that income into some other people's pockets, but that's not what's happening. He's taking that home, and it's been consistent for years at that rate. For years, he's been making that much money, right? That's fine. That's great. That's what people have decided to spend their money on. So he doesn't have to invest in the market. Most people need up to $3 million in investments to live off of, like, let's say $200,000 a year, $160,000 a year, just depending on the return, right? He could take the money he made in 1 year and put it into the market and live off of that. He could literally make $200,000 a year right now with his investments and stop taking any donations. It's up to how he wants to do things. But the fact is, if the top leftist guy, who's an anti-capitalist, is still taking $2 million a year in donations, the question is like, why the hell are we all feeling bad when we make $60K a year, $70K, $80K a year, $30K a year about putting some money away in our retirements just to make some percentage back from the market? That's the question. So that's why I understand, and I don't blame people for putting money in the market. I understand. Because it's like, yeah, like I'm not going to, you know what I mean? When we have these conversations, it's going to be dependent on how you have a relationship with these things. So it doesn't matter what Brittany Simon thinks. I'm not going to pay your retirement. It doesn't matter what Hassan Piker is doing. He's not paying your retirement. What matters is what you're doing for your family. Because at the end of the day, the government is not going to come and help you, most likely. We're still fighting for that system to exist. So we all have to make decisions about how to take care of ourselves as we age. Because you don't want to be the retirees in America right now who are leaving retirement because they're not getting enough on Social Security and they have to go back to work. You don't want to be that person. So it's like, okay, what do we do not to be those people? Well, being as ethical as possible. So no exploitation. Don't exploit people. Okay, at least not directly, to the best of your ability. Right? Okay, next TikTok.
To save for retirement. So I think.
Hold on.
The ethical.
I don't know what this original stitch was about, but I was curious about the reply.
Leftist way to save for retirement.
So I think what's making this question difficult to answer for a lot of people is that our concept of investment is very centered in things. What is the right stuff to buy? What is the right thing to put my money into to prepare myself for the future without making myself dependent on the capitalist system? But when you're looking for ethics while living under capitalism, you have to think outside the box. I think this question becomes a little bit easier to answer when we stop thinking about an investment as a thing you have to buy and start thinking of investment more as laying groundwork, making preparations, planting the seeds for the conditions you'd like to see in the future. I think that if your goal is to have a certain quality of life supported for you as you enter old age, traditional monetary investments are not the only way to do that. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I think the key is investing in community.
Okay, I really love this answer. Okay, I haven't watched this, so I really love that answer. And I think that's a very important part that I'm thinking about too, is like, who's our community going to be? Are we going to move countries? Now, here's the dilemma is again, this is my life. I'm not complaining and I'm not looking for your advice. I'm sharing in hopes that you can learn from me about what you're doing. One of the unique dilemmas we're in is that we don't live in the US where most of my family is, and we live in Croatia where most of my partner's family is dispersed and he doesn't have a very big family. My family, though big, doesn't all live in the same place. So when people say, invest in a community, that's a beautiful idea. But what if we can't all afford to live where our family lives? My parents moved to California 30 years ago. So they have a paid off home in Cali. None of their kids can afford to live in their neighborhood. None of us can afford to be their neighbors. None of their kids can afford a house where they live, right? So either my parents sell their house and move where their kids are, but what if their kids end up leaving because the job opportunities are better somewhere else? That's something else that's changed. A lot of us are moving for jobs where in the past, many of us didn't do that. So that also ends up being a question. Now, that is, I think, still fairly unique. I have a feeling, if I'm not mistaken by the numbers I've looked up recently, that most people are still generally in the places they grew up and were. I think my family might be unique in that we do end up leaving, a lot of us, but something to keep in mind, right? And then I think I saw a question maybe. Oh, Chad said, legit my coworker coming to work after he's getting infusion therapy for his cancer. This dude should not be working. Exactly. What the fuck is that? Exactly. Amen.
I think systems of support within and between self-sufficient, interdependent communities is the best alternative to what we have right now. Investing in community means fostering and cultivating relationships, especially intergenerational relationships. It means building relationships with people who have access to, will have access to, know how to access resources that you think you'll need at some point down the line. And it means investing time and money into community infrastructure. Physical and political infrastructure, yes. Community centers, community gardens, land banks, CLT.
And then here's the question. This is the hard part. What if you start building community with somebody and they change in that time and they become really conservative and God forbid they become homophobic or racist or bigoted? Because that's why I want us to be smart about how we build community. And I want us to be reasonable about human beings going on their own journeys, because a lot of us have spent a lot of years with a lot of people, and people change. They change for the better. Sometimes they change for the worse. Something to think about though, something to consider.
Etc., but also social infrastructure within your community. The desire of the people that you're in community with to stay in that community and to continue building it long past the point that you're gone. Because that's what sustainability means, baby. But also kind of getting back to the idea of monetary investments real quick. I think it is possible to leverage monetary investments in a way that is conducive to developing some support of community self-sufficiency, which can hopefully then be improved upon as the greater societal conditions around us hopefully improve. Maybe instead of using that Roth IRA money to buy a beach house in Florida, you organize your neighbors and buy your apartment complex from your landlord, or buy some farmland and give the deed to the indigenous people that are native to your area.
So these are rich people dreams. And this is the irony. To me, these are rich people dreams. Buy a building and give it to people? Are you rich? So then there's the part of the dreaming of a leftist is still a rich people's dream. So then conservatives are like, wait, that's what I want to do. I want to buy stuff and give it to my kids, or I want to buy stuff and give it to my family, or I want to buy stuff and rent it out. So why do we still have people? Why are we still making rich people dreams? So again, the question is, if the goal is still rich people dreams, then we got to make more money and we have to invest, apparently. This is always the dilemma of every dream I see from people. It's like, let's buy a plot of land and all live together. Anybody got a milli? Anybody got a milli?
Yeah. Me is always, always, always community building. That is the only thing that is going to get us out of this mess. So I think that as long as you're contributing to the long-term strength and independence of your communities, as well as the communities that support your communities, you're on the right track.
Yeah, I really struggle. Now, listen, this is a conservative fear. As a person who's raised conservative, one of the conservative fears is you're going to invest all this time and money into somebody, they're going to take advantage of you. Now, here's the thing. Generally, people all take advantage of each other. That's why you all suck. Human beings suck. If they didn't all take advantage of each other, we wouldn't be in this fucking spot. Now, the dilemma is how many people are actually taking advantage of people and how many people are just suffering. It's a mixed bag, but we're all suffering. It's just, how do you account for the people that are really taking advantage of people? Well, it depends, because again, when I just look at my own family structure and I look at those people and who needs housing. And again, this is the criticism of Chelsea Fagan buying a second house in France for $1 million that didn't go to a family in need. It's not like she bought it for a sister or bought it for a family member that was retiring. She bought it for her husband and her so they could live in two countries at the same time and then use it as a nonprofit, right? So the reason it sounds scummy is because there's a housing crisis, people need housing, and she didn't use her rich person money to really give back. She justified it by saying she was going to make it an artist retreat, but like that doesn't help the community. As much as it sounds like it does, I don't think it does. I personally do not think her buying a second house for her and her husband that they're going to write off as a nonprofit and make it an artist residency is giving back to the community. I don't. But some people would say, yes, that is giving back to the community. Maybe the rich art community, maybe the like, what is art even? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, there's a lot here. Okay. So what I would say instead is, because we're animals on a planet, systems need to be reworked so systems can fill the holes of greedy community members. So if you have a greedy ass brother who's a pain in the ass, let the government house him and keep him away from my kids. Because I don't think your family should have to do that. Because at the end of the day, you cannot fix the fucked upness in your brother's brain. You cannot fix the fucked upness of your family legacy. It doesn't matter how much we fix the system today. It's going to take thousands of years for our shit to get better generally. You know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? Chet says, I think art is important, but it's a very specific type of help. Yeah, exactly. Like, I would love, okay, if she took $1 million and gave, how many artists could she give $20K to do art? How many individual artists could she send $20,000 to with $1 million? But no, her and her husband wanted a house. And so they used the excuse of, quote, making it a nonprofit for artists as a reason to justify the purchase of a second home they didn't need. And they took a home from a local family in France. Do you know what I'm saying? You could have taken that $1 million and paid somebody's rent, paid an artist rent for a year. You could have literally paid 10 different artists rent for a year so they could do only art for a year. You know what I mean? It's like there were so many things. There were so many other things you could have done. You could have funded a school. You could have just so many things. She just wanted a second house and she wanted a reason to justify it. That's my opinion. Instead of just saying, I want a second house, celebrate it with me. She was like, oh, but it's a nonprofit. Okay, girl. Anyways, again, just a difference of ethics. I'm not saying Chelsea's an evil person. I'm just saying, like, for me, this would be philosophically evil and I don't approve. Okay. Chat says, do you think racism is a form of intergenerational trauma? I think it can be, but I don't think it always is. I think it can be. I think there's a lot of reasons why people are racist. Like, I think there's a lot of reasons why people are bigoted. Some of it's trauma. Some of it is an honest belief. Some of it is a learned belief. Some of it is programming. But bigotry comes in. People are bigoted for all kinds of reasons. I just don't think it's ever one thing in that regard. Yeah. Okay. So next TikTok, here's this one. It says, going to Wall Street investment banking jobs after hours on anti-capitalist TikTok.
And I don't want to be poor. Yes.
Let's be absolutely clear. You do not have to be poor to be a socialist, right? UPS drivers can make up to $100,000 a year. Union nurses' starting salary is $70,000, $80,000, depending on what hospital you're in. Being a socialist is not about donating money to the right causes. It is about focusing on where we can build power for the working class. And that's why DSA has endorsed the rank and file strategy, which is about industrializing into strategic sectors like healthcare, education, and logistics in order to grow a vibrant rank and file union movement that can fight for the working class. If you don't know what you want to do after college, but definitely know you don't want to work on Wall Street, then join DSA. We can help you industrialize. We can help you become a nurse, a teacher, a UPS driver. All of these are strategic ways that we can build up a strong rank and file union movement to help us create a fighting working class.
What do you think about that? So this is the political spin. He has a Bernie shirt on. He's a Democratic Socialist. Which, by the way, you know how Hassan, I saw this pin on his shirt and I was like, oh, it's a Palestine pin. It's a Democrat Socialist pin. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I'm so sorry. That's so ADHD of me. But like, he has this pin on his suit and I was like, oh my God, that's nice. At least it's a Palestine pin. It's not. I cannot respect this man. Every time I try to respect him, I lose respect. Every time I try to give him some flowers, I take them back. I saw him talk to Austin about it, and Austin's like, I'm wearing a trans pin. Which pin are you wearing? And he's like, DSA. And I was like, boo! Like, what? Anyways, okay, I'm a hater. Listen, I'm not a hater. I'm just principled. Okay. So I like his perspective. I like the coalition building. I think it's a nice idea. I also think there's something about it in which, not everybody is great at group activities. So one of the dilemmas of people's predispositions is like, not all of us want to get up and do some group activity. But if you do want to do a group activity, I don't think this is the worst solution, is working with an organization that will help you move in a direction as long as it coincides with your values. But something to think about, something to think about. Okay. Now, here is, okay, here's this.
Have you
Here's this one, last one. This is venture communism, ?
Have you heard of venture communism? It's basically when a group of people invests in someone's startup or...
Pause. Already. Investing. Interesting. It's basically when a group of people invest in someone's startup.
help someone start a company.
Right.
And everyone shares the profit opposed to venture capitalism, where one person invests, one capitalist invests his capital into a organization, a startup, and gains pretty much all of the capital gains.
Now, think Winco if you're in California, or think, I think his merch company is like that, where like everyone is like an owner, or maybe it's his podcast. I always forget which one. But okay, like we all invest in something and we all benefit from it, which is different than like a company being publicly traded and like you buy shares and you kind of invest in a company. Okay, that's a possibility. That maybe is an option. Why don't more people do this? Well, a big part of it is greed, and a big part of it is like you still have to labor. And I think, and I mean this so respectfully, and I don't mean it in the way the conservatives like nobody wants to work. But I do think human beings don't actually want to work as much as the world requires us to work. And I think that's good. I think our evolutionary predisposition knows we don't and should not be laboring this hard, that we are laboring unnecessarily in so many ways. And because we're so fucked, we just keep trying to fix a system that's not working, which is why we want to dismantle and start again and try to, instead of trying to improve what's there. It's kind of like, what it feels like? It's a painting. And you've done all your layers of painting or paint, your oil, and you notice that you keep trying to paint the painting on wet paint and it won't dry, and you're like, it's okay, it will dry eventually, but you're too, it's not working. And then instead of just like scrapping the painting and starting again, it's just like a sunk cost fallacy of like, oh, but I already used all this oil paint on my canvas and I don't want to waste all this oil paint. So you just keep trying to paint the painting, it's not working. I feel like we have a sunk cost fallacy with everything we've built in the world. Well, we already built all this. If we get rid of it, what then? It's kind of like the same reason like cow ranchers don't just turn around and become vegan, because it's like I'm in a business my father owned, my grandfather owned, and now you want me to go vegan when I've built all this clientele and this legacy and this, it's like it's hard for people to start over again when they've built so much up. So like one of the greatest philosophical tools I can give you is don't be afraid to start over. But every time you start over from a higher level with more knowledge, a deeper relationship with self. So I think there's a big part of our biological, emotional, traumatic experience that is keeping us from doing. Now, I'll also tell you this. One of the dilemmas I have had personally of working with other people is drama. I don't want to deal with you. It's really scary to work with somebody and to deal with people, and then all of a sudden you don't know the goodness of those people and they turn around and they really come at you. I just saw a TikTok of the streamer, his best friend of 25 years stole $100,000 from him. It really is the people you know. And so I'm just sitting here like, no. My father had a business with his brothers. That went awry eventually. Drama. So I'm saying it's really hard to ask people to build a coalition or build a business with people or build a neighborhood with people when we know the drama in our own families. So that's also moving past our own trauma to build something healthy. But then how do you weed people out? So one of the ways that I do it now is I make sure people have their own thing going on. No matter how big or small, I want to make sure you have your own thing going on so you're not reliant on me. So like, it's not about, it's about you're independent, I'm independent, we collab, you're independent, I'm independent, we have our thing, but I need it to not be about me. Like I need your life to be your life, and whatever you do with your life has nothing to do with me. Give or take a couple of details. Obviously, we're not talking about ethical differences. We're talking about like monetary survivability or So when people say like build a community, you know, share, it's hard to share with people that you can't trust. I mean, we can barely trust ourselves. So we have to really think about these things. You know, we have to think about why people move away from villages they were raised in, why there's bigotry in a lot of our villages, why there's a lot of trauma. We have to remember that, like, as much as we want to all fund our grandmas, some of us were touched by our grandmas. Not me, but someone in this audience was definitely touched by their grandma. And that's devastating. But like, that's the problem. They're not just sweet old ladies. They might be your molester. They're not just, you know, your favorite brother. They might be also your molester. They're not just like your sweet, you know, sister. That might be somebody who stole money from you. So when we have these conversations, as much as I would like to believe we're all like these beautiful, wonderful human beings, if we were, the world wouldn't be as fucked up as it is. So it makes sense that some people just mind their business, live a good life, and die. It's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. You know what I mean? So just things to think about. Okay, let's finish this out a little.
That it generates. So venture communism, why I'm bringing this up is I'm starting a venture communist startup. It gets confusing because it's a...
Okay, so you see the way that he's presenting himself. I assume he's a he, him. I would not trust him. So you're starting a business. We don't have money as it is. You're asking to be involved. And now you're presenting in a way that I don't trust. And to be fair, he doesn't have a lot of followers or anything, but this is the whole part of it. Like, I'm sure he's a nice person. But when we sit there and we go to the internet and we say, hey, I'm trying to do this big thing, and you're not making it sense, you're not making sense for what direction people should trust. This is why scammers who sell courses work really hard on looking like they know what they're doing. So you spend all your money on their course, and then they become rich while you don't. But he's not even doing that part of it, because I think maybe he's genuine or something. But the comment section is what cracked me up. You're starting a mutual fund, and what you're describing is stock. Stocks. Isn't that just a co-op? Is this a mutual worker owned co-op, or is this a corporation with greater profit share? It's like, okay, what is this? It says, dude, that's a game. Have you ever played it before? And it's like, obviously, other people are seeing that. I'm like, what is this guy about? He's just somebody who came to the internet and had an idea. So this plays into what I told you the other day about really knowing what you're doing. Because I do think a lot of us come to the internet with these great ideas, but we have no, like we're Trump. I have a concept of a plan instead of actually making something happen. Okay? You can't just have a plan to own a home. You can't just have a plan to get a job. You can't just have a plan. You have to do it. Like, you have to do it. And then when you do it, you have to be someone trusts to do it, because that's the burden of doing something. People rely on you. So then it's about responsibility. So this is why conservatives walk through the world with like a little chip on their shoulder, because the ones who make it under capitalism go, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. Not necessarily, though. We've seen this with people who sell courses, and they don't always know what they're talking about, but they've told you they do, and you believe them. And now they're rich, and now they're on podcasts about how they made $1 million overnight selling a course, and that's what gives them the validity in the eyes of people. Well, what do you know about? They have money, right? So when we have conversations about yes, chat, a dreamer, when we talk about dreamers versus doers, the dreamer and the doer needs to come together so the dream makes sense and the doer makes it happen. But if you're just a dreamer, what's going to happen here? And if you're just a doer, then you're just doing, but with no plan. How many of us just say, I'll make more money? How many of us just say, I'll get another job? How many of us have no plan for retirement, no plan for a future? We're just doers. Well, that's not very helpful either. And then on the other side, you're a dreamer and nothing gets done. So again, we need a balance of both. You need to be able to dream about the future and then make it happen. And that's hard. So sometimes that's somebody who's a friend or a family member helps you balance. Sometimes you have to find it within yourself. Either way, we're all going to grow old and die, hopefully, which means that we have to plan for growing old and dying, which means it has to be more than just sitting on the internet and dreaming, or just sitting in your home and dreaming. You got to do something. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to be easy, but it's possible. The question is, what's going to look possible for you? And only you can answer that, because I don't know where you're at in your life. So my dream, my whole life, was to be a creative. Ever since I was a little girl, I either wanted to be an author, a radio host, a performer. I always wanted to do something where I didn't have to sit in an office all day. And if I was, it was over fashion design. Like if I was going to sit in an office, I better be Devil Wears Prada, right? So I was like, well, how do I do this in a way that makes me feel good and in a way that gives me work-life balance? And then I work on it and I work on it forever. Because even though I made my dream come true, my dream is allowed to change as well. And I'm allowed to change the way that I do things. So right now, this is very fulfilling. I love it so much. I hope I get to do it forever. And I know the world is changing. I know the world is changing. AI is taking over. I know the world is going to want something different. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to prepare for it. You know, I was watching Ramith today, and Ramith said he was working with this couple. And it was so amazing to watch people, even in relationships, guys, not be able to work together. Like we're talking about co-ops with strangers, right? We're talking about building community with people. Married couples won't even share money together. They don't trust each other. Married couples with kids don't even trust each other. And then you're asking the world to build all these organizations with people they don't even know. It's a big ask for animals on a planet. And that's what we are. It's not to say you should give up. It's to say we need better ideas because none of them are working. Even the ones where you say we should build with community. It's not working. So then the question is, what is working? It is community plus. It's within reason with boundaries, okay? And you have to radically accept that the community is flawed and the community is suffering. Because I think sometimes when we talk about this community effort, we forget that the community is suffering. We forget that there's addiction and spiraling gambling addiction and debt and mental health. And we just forget that the community isn't without flaw. So what I do and what I recommend you do is you have to practice engaging with a radical acceptance that you are an animal on a planet. And for animals, we're doing pretty good, but we could be doing better. And that's why I say be less bad every day. So I'm not going to fault you if you invest. I'm also not going to fault you if you don't. I hope we move. I hope we continue to encourage the system to change. And I hope that we get to see it in our lifetime. But in case we don't, I also hope you plan for the future in whatever way that looks like. Whether it's talking to your friends and family, whether it's buying a house with your friends, okay? Whether it's making sure that as a single person, you have enough retirement, making sure you put your foot down when your family asks you for money when you know they're not going to spend it on good things, making sure that you think about your family and see which ways you can help, you know, with the family, okay? So when we have these conversations, I just want it to be something that we think about. And don't overwhelm yourself if you can't quite figure out the answer. Take it a day at a time and plan for the future. So I only do like a few years ahead because I don't know what the world's going to look like, but I have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and a 10-year plan. And the 10-year plan is like very contingent on the 3-year plan and the 5-year plan happening. And the 5-year plan is only contingent on the 3-year plan. So first and foremost, the 3-year plan has to happen. And then the 5-year plan, and then the 10-year plan. And that's how I think about it. Okay, so I don't have any answers for you other than this is a journey I'm on. You'll probably see me go through it for the next few years, but I hope that we have some answers to offer people. And in the meantime, keep creating, keep engaging in hobbies, keep meditating, and keep spending time with your family and friends, and keep trying to figure out how you want to labor in the world because it's really important. Right? Like how you labor in the world is everything, and all of us must labor. It doesn't have to be for a paycheck. But we do have to do labor because that's what it means to be a person on the planet. It means to participate in our community in any way possible. That is a type of labor, you know?